Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for being with us. We're celebrating this Cyber Shabbat. This is a special Shabbat. It's the beginning of the book of Leviticus, Vayikra, and we have wonderful music and prayers and thoughts, meditations to share with all of you. We're going to begin with Gesher Tsar Ma'od, which if you have a prayer book is on page 643. The words are, the entire world is but a narrow bridge. The most important thing is not to be afraid. Let's turn in our Sidurim to Yedid Nefesh, My Heart's Delight, in the middle of page 128.
Oh
Cantor Ephraim will now sing the blessing over the Shabbat candles.
What page is it on, Rabbi?
On page 120.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's nice to be here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
I'd like to read a special meditation from our Gates of Prayer, the former Siddur that we used for many, many years, otherwise known as the Gates of Blue, as we prepare for Shabbat prayer. O God, you have called us into life, set us in the midst of purposes we cannot measure or understand. Yet we thank you for the good we know, for the life we have, and for the gifts that are our daily portion, for health and healing, for labor and repose, for the ever-renewed beauty of earth and sky, for thoughts of truth and justice which stir us from our ease and move us to acts of goodness, and for the contemplation of your eternal presence, which fills us with hope that what is good and lovely can never perish. Amen. So let's turn in our own prayer books, the Mishkan Tefillah, to page 127, and we'll read together this meditation before we come to the Sabbath Tehillim, the Sabbath Psalms. Top of page 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. Let's turn to Psalm 95, Lechune Ranana, on page 130, and we'll sing together the opening stanza.
Yes. Alrighty. Let's see if we can find that first. So, here we go.
Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is the great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. So we're going to read together from Psalm 99. We're on page 135 in our Siddur. Bottom of page 135. Adonai enthroned on cherubim is sovereign. Peoples tremble, the earth quakes. Adonai is great in Zion, exalted above all peoples. They praise your name as great and awesome. God is holy. Mighty ruler who loves justice, it was you who established equity, you who worked righteous judgment in Jacob. Exalt Adonai our God, and bow down to God's footstool. God is holy. Exalt Adonai our God, and bow toward God's holy hill, for Adonai our God is holy. We're continuing on the next page with verses from Psalm 29, known as Habul Adonai.
Mizmor le-David, Havul Adonai b'ne'elim, Havul Adonai kavod va'oz, Havul Adonai kavod shemo, Ishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'kovach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vaishaber Adonai et arzeh ha'levanon.
Let's read together in the English on page 137. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calve and strips the forest bare. While in God's temple all say glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned, sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. We're singing together Lecha Dodi with our Cantor, with Windy and Alma, our accompanists. We're on page 138.
What verses are we singing, Rabbi?
Verses 1, 2, and 9.
E to A. Everyone. Adonai.
ninth verse. Let's all be seated, and we're going to sing another favorite tune, Shalom Aleichem, which you all know by heart. It's in the prayer book on page 142 with clarinet accompanist Windy Dankoff.
Gets a bit Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruri l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzechem shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We continue now with the Chatzi Kaddish on 144. If you're able, please rise as we chant together.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חילותי ימליך מלכותי, בחיי חורוב יומי חוד, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יש ברבה מברך, לעלם עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח, ויתהר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי בקודשא ברכו. לעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, לאמירן בעלמא, ואמרו אמן.
We turn the page and continue as a congregation singing the Baruch Hu, the call to worship.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד.
Let's turn again and we'll join together in the English for the first blessing before the Shema. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are a creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night, distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Sabaoth is your name.
Ever-living God,
may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamarim Haravim. The second blessing, Ahavat Olam, together on page 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them. For they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Together the Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malachuto, Leolam Vaed.
Let's all be seated. So we continue with the words of V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'nibartabam v'shivtecha v'itecha v'letecha v'aderech v'shachbecha v'kumecha v'kshartam leota yadecha v'hayu letatafot b'neinecha v'ktatam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha. Let's read together. L'ma'am tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem emet. Together you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem emet. We turn to the beautiful words of Mi Chamocha, who is like you, O God, among all those that are worshipped, from the book of Exodus, page 158.
No
Shabbat evening, asking God, beseeching God to protect us from the dangers of the night, to watch over us, to protect us from the shadim, from the dangerous angels that hover above us. So in this difficult time that we're all encountering, this prayer is so apt and so pertinent to all of us. Let's read these beautiful words in the middle of 161 in the English. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, Apores Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Amo Yisrael, Ve'al Yerushalayim. So we continue with the Vishamru, a beautiful arrangement of this classic melody that comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 31. 7 essential prayers, the 7 brachot of the Shabbat evening service, the tefillah. We're on page 164. If you're able, please rise and sing with us. We begin from the Psalms, Adonai Sefatai Tiftach.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaMibor v'Hanora, Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevii Geula Livnei Bneihem, Le'an Shemo Le'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Yitzchak Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol atah Rav Le'Hoshia. Mechalek el Chaim b'Chesed, Mechayeh HaKol b'Rachamim Rabim. Tzomech noflim v'rofech cholim, U'makir asurim, U'mekayem emunato, Mishenei afar, Michamocha me'al gevurot, U'midom elach, Melech me'mid u'mechayeh, U'matzliach Yeshua, V'ne'emar atah lechayot ha'kol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh ha'kol.
Together, we're reading in the middle of 170. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, El HaKadosh. Let's all be seated. We're reading together the fourth blessing, top of page 173, as we sanctify this Sabbath Eve. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. May this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We turn the page for the blessing over Zion, for the return to the land of Israel. We're going to read in the English, top of page 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve and reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, Sholotcha levadcha b'yirah na'avot. And the blessing of thanksgiving, Modim, which is on page 176. In the middle of the page, we read in English. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha, u'lecha na'el lehodot. Amen. Our seventh blessing, as we all know, is Shalom Rav. Let's turn the page, and we'll sing with our cantor, with Windy and Alma. Let's take a few moments for our own personal prayers. So we've all been through a difficult week, and it's time on Shabbat to let go of some of our worries and concerns and give thanks for what we have. We're healthy, we're strong, we're supporting one another, and all of us as a community are doing our very best to uplift all of those around us. This is a special Shabbat. As I said, we're getting close to Passover. We're very close to Rosh Chodesh, the month of Nisan, the month of spring, the month of Passover. We also begin, as you know, this Shabbat, the third book of the Bible, namely Vayikra, called in English Leviticus. The reason it was named Leviticus from the Latin, obviously, is because of the Levites, because so much of this book speaks about the Levitical families, Aaron and his sons, and all of his relatives who are involved in the sacrificial process that the ancient Israelites practiced in the desert more than 3,500 years ago. But you and I, as Jews, know this book as Vayikra. Vayikra means he called. Who is calling? It is, of course, Hashem. The Lord is calling to Moses and giving him instructions about what he shall speak, what he'll say to the Israelites and explain to them the beginning of this whole system of sacrifices. Remember, in the ancient world, there were no prayer books, there were no written documents. People showed their allegiance, their obedience, their reverence for the divine by bringing the best of their flock, their herds, their cattle, their corn, their grains, their wheat to the Levites to offer them as a gift, as a thanksgiving offering, sometimes as an offering of teshuvah, to amend for sins that may have been committed. But we lived in a sacrificial system because that was the way to approach God. Obviously, in this world that we now live in, we have different ways, different modes of reaching up to the divine. One of the amazing little nuances of the opening verse of Leviticus, it says, Vayikra el Moshe v'yidaber Hashem elav. So the first word, Vayikra, ends in the letter Aleph. And the very next word, El, starts with the letter Aleph. You know that in the ancient manuscripts, Hebrew was written in a continuous stream of letters. There were no spaces between words, there were no spaces for paragraphs. So, the scribes who ordained the way the Torah was to be written down almost 2,000 years ago said the first Aleph of Vayikra, at the end of that word, has to be small. It's a minuscule Aleph. It's what's called a rabbati letter, a rabbinic emendation or a rabbinic notation that Aleph looks different in the Torah scroll than the next Aleph of the word El. So the rabbis say, well, why would you change the size, the shape, the calligraphy of that Aleph? And so they give us these beautiful interpretations, one of which is that as the rabbis did write Torah scrolls some 2,000 years ago, there could have been a mistake, namely that someone might forget the first Aleph because the very next word begins with Aleph. So therefore, to distinguish and make sure that every word is written perfectly, the rabbis ordained in the Galilean tradition that the first letter would be little. But more importantly, more on a deeper level, it's about Moses, because God is talking to Moses, and this is a big deal. You know, when the Almighty starts talking to you, you pay attention. You sometimes go like this. You draw into oneself. Maybe you become scared. Maybe you become a little bit more humble. And the sages say that first Aleph is a way of Moses showing his humility, showing his reverence for the Almighty by drawing down and sort of shirking away a little bit, because to receive a message from the divine is an overwhelming experience. You don't just stand up there with your ego flashing and your chest out saying, here am I, thank you very much, let me know what's happening. You're supposed to show a sense of reserve, a sense of humility. And that little Aleph is a symbol of humility. as Moses is listening to the divine voice.
And what about the big olive? Did he gain more confidence then?
As he went along, he probably got a little more confident. I want to share one other important thought about this whole story of sacrifices, because sometimes people point their finger at the Jewish people and say, you're too concerned with ritual. And what is this whole book about sacrifices? This is so anachronistic, so out of date. What does it have to do with our real world? The word sacrifice from Greek means to make something sacred, from the word sakra, S-A-C-R-A. But that's not the word in Hebrew. The word in Hebrew for a sacrifice is korban, K-O-R-B-A-N, from kuf, resh, and bet. Korban or kerev means to draw close, to draw closer. So what are we talking about here? When we make a sacrifice, in Hebrew, what it really means is we are drawing ourselves closer, lifting ourselves up towards the divine. It's not about giving up something, taking something out of our pocket and handing it to someone else and feeling, I wish I didn't have to do that. Korban means to lift ourselves to a higher level and begin to approach God and to know that God is there to receive our thoughts and our gifts. It's a very important idea. You know, the Jewish people have changed over the years. We've adapted to new civilizations, to new ways of culture, to new ways of practicing. Obviously, we no longer have that sacrificial system. So what did the rabbis say? Well, the best way to approach God and get a little closer is to start praying as an individual and also as a community. It's so important to pray together. That's why we're doing this service. Even though you're watching it on your computer, hopefully you're thinking of the whole community as you say these words. Because prayer alone is not really the only answer. Mitzvah prayer is wonderful and important, but you and I know there are other mitzvahs that go along with prayer that help us draw a little closer to the divine. Tzedakah, teshuva, ugimilut chasadim. The way we get closer is to be righteous, to do the right thing for other human beings, to help them, especially in this time of need. Teshuva, to remind ourselves that we're not so perfect. We need to clean up our act, as my teacher always used to say, and make amends for our shortcomings. Ugimilut chasadim means to show incredible kindness and chesed, righteousness towards others, to do good deeds for others, to lift up the fallen, to help the people out there on St. Francis who are less fortunate than you and I are, to help everyone who is in need. If someone needs a prescription, go to the pharmacy and pick up the prescription. If someone needs some extra food and they can't drive anymore, then hopefully you and I can go to the store and get food for them. It's all part of what it means to draw closer to God, because we are a community and we do things to help each other, and in that way we understand our relationship with the divine. So I hope everyone will enjoy this Sabbath, recharge your batteries, feel a little bit stronger, and think about the ways you can help one another, help all of us this coming week. Let's sing together Mishaberach, which is on my prayer book. We're on page 371. Think of your loved ones and our congregants and many, many people who have been in and out of hospital. And I hope everybody is feeling as healthy as possible on this Shabbat.
Are we going to include people? Or?
Yeah, please, if you have names, go ahead.
My brother-in-law, Gregor Kovacic, Flo Vinnick.
All those who are suffering from the virus.
Joan Scheinberg, Kate Shane, Nora Siegel, Reggie Klein, Doreen Herdig. Many of our members are resting and keeping up their strength at home on this Shabbat.
Martha Ives.
and everyone in the United States, everyone who is in fact needing greater strength and physical and spiritual uplifting on this Sabbath day.
Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
So let's continue with our closing prayers, the Aleinu, which you'll find on page 586. In the middle, the lower portion of the page is the traditional Aleinu that we all sing together.
Please stand if you're able. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'ten kedula l'otzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyeh haratzot, ve'ros amanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, ve'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Turn to page 591, the middle of the page. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Let's be seated, please. So let's read this beautiful poem before we come to the words of the Kaddish. We're on 583. We'll read together. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as they live, we too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. On the Sabbath day, we remember with love and devotion those whose lives have been a blessing to us, who have inspired us and given us life. During this period of Shloshim, we remember our friend in this community, Paul Lichtenstein. And on their yahrzeit memorial with love and devotion, we now recall Dan Obel, brother of Barb Lamont, Armin Lamont, Molly Brody, aunt of Rob Bernstein, Eric James Getz, son of Ruthie Kobow, Jack LeCure, father of Phil LeCure, and Lodwin McNichol, beloved member of Connie Rosenberg's family. Any other announcements? Let's all turn to the Kaddish, Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. We'll all stand and read the Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabba, v'alma dibra chirutei yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yom echon, v'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael, b'hagala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach, v'alam amnei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei b'kudshah richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushvechata v'nechemata da'amiram v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the Holy One who causes harmony from on high bring us peace, bring peace to all of Israel, to the land of Israel, and all good people. We say together, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, u'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We encourage you to celebrate Kiddush, lift up the cup of wine and say the blessing, and then the motzi for challah. We encourage all of you to do that at home with your loved ones and friends, at least 6 feet apart from everyone else. And so we're not going to recite those blessings now. Why don't we just conclude this service with one more round of Gesher Tzarmaot.
Sure.
So if you have a prayer book, we're again singing on page 643, Kol Ha'olam Kulo Gesher Tzarmaot. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Have a beautiful Sabbath day.
Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od. Repeat. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar me'od, gesher tzar me'od. Ve'ha'ikar, ve'ha'ikar, lo levater, lo levater, lo. Ve'ha'ikar, ve'ha'ikar, lo levater, lo. Repeat. Ve'ha'ikar, ve'ha'ikar, lo levater, lo levater, lo. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.